Alrighty, welcome. We're just going to go ahead and take a couple minutes to go ahead and admit everyone in. So let's just go ahead and just hang on tight. And then Angela, let me know when we're ready.
Just a few more people trickling in. Maybe we'll give it one more minute.
It looks like we just got a message if we're putting intros in the chat. Yes, please, let's go ahead and do that. Thank you.
And I'll keep letting people in, Dana, if you want to get started.
Alrighty, well, let's go ahead and get started. We have a pretty packed agenda today. So as a reminder, you're going to go ahead and get a recording of this meeting as well as any information that we share. So just, hang on tight with us as we go through a lot of content with you, and then some announcements and some of those pieces. My name is Dana Young. I'm the Preschool Promise Program Manager here at the Early Learning Division with our program unit. And with me, I have my colleague, Angela, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Angela Stinson over here at the ELD as well. Thanks for joining today.
Awesome. Alrighty, well, let's go ahead and get started. Next slide. Alrighty, well, we really wanted to go ahead and just take a couple minutes. It's been a rough week, especially with what happened in Texas, and so our hearts and everything goes with those families. And we wanted to just go ahead and do a quick little check-in on how are you doing. I think with our work, sometimes we can get too caught up in our work and everything. Well, we just wanted to go ahead and do a little bit of a check-in to go ahead and make sure that all of you guys are doing good, your families, your staff, and everybody. I think is always a reminder of how precious life is. And so just, please go ahead and take time to really just take care of yourselves. So we wanted to go ahead and just take a minute to go ahead and just process that. Thank you. Next slide, Angela. Alrighty, so we're going to go ahead and start just by giving a quick update on grant amendments, and also just provide a little bit of clarification on the process, because it is a little bit different from last year, and we may have made it a little too simple that it may have caused so what I need to do, is there any steps that I need to do on my end? So I wanted to go ahead and do that. We're also wanting to go ahead and engage with you and talk about what could be some services or enhancements that you think that we can go ahead and do with Preschool Promise to enhance our programming as we move forward. Then we're going to go ahead and cover our end of the year report for this program year. Then our closeout process. We are coming to the end of 21-22 program year. So what does that look like, and what are the things that you need to kind of keep in mind? And then we have some pretty exciting and important announcements to go ahead and make to all of you. And that will be in regards to insurance and our cost per child and transportation enhancement. So that will be at the end. So definitely worth sticking through the whole meeting. So lots of information for you all. Alrighty, next slide. I think we may be missing a slide there, but yes. So grant updates. So as we had covered on the other meeting, we had 3 different thresholds for continuation. And that was insurance, enrollment, and then we had our licensing threshold. By now, all of our Preschool Promise grantees that met all those thresholds, you should have received an email that says you passed the thresholds. Things are good on our end. But if for some reason for whatever reason you don't want to continue with your Preschool Promise grant, please notify us as soon as possible. So that will be, you should have received an email. It should have been sent to the program contact that we have on our end. that you met the thresholds. For those that didn't meet the thresholds, you should have received an email that says you didn't meet the threshold and what will be some of those documentations that you can go ahead and submit for consideration. Currently, we are under review for the enrollment thresholds. So just, for those of you that send in information, it's going through that process of the internal review as far as what will be some next steps. Obviously I know that sometimes that kind of process can seem very daunting and scary. Our intent is to go ahead and continue with our grantees, but we also have the due diligence to go ahead and just get a little bit more information on what may be causing some of those issues, and also, but always with the view of how can we support, what can we do, help us understand the situation. So that's how it is as far as the process on your end for those who met the thresholds. Is right now you're pretty much you met the thresholds. There's nothing to do on your end unless you don't want to continue. We do need an official email from you saying that you don't want to continue. So if for some reason something has changed, please notify us by our PSP at od.oregon.gov. And there's no continuation application. What's going to happen is that we have our grant amendment that is currently under DOJ review and procurement review. So once that's ready, it will be automatically sent to you directly for signature. So there's really no application that you need to go ahead and fill out or anything. It's really just a matter of waiting for that grant amendment or grant for signature. Go ahead, Angela.
Really, really quick, if I can, Dana, just to address Jennifer, and wanted to kind of reiterate this. Some folks have reached out. They're wondering, they didn't see that approval notice, wondering what's going on. Please do reach out to us. I know some folks are still, our procurement department is still reviewing insurance information if you submitted it with in the past 2 weeks. But if it's been longer than that, or you have any question about whether or not you are meeting all 3 thresholds, do reach out and we can confirm that with you.
Thank you. Okay, and we covered that. Right, I cover a lot of information, so we're just going through this slice right now. And we covered this one. Let me take a look here.
I don't think we covered this one. Do you want to just quick check-in? Did you want to talk about funding before the poll, or do you want to go back to the poll?
Yeah, let's go back to the poll because already. So we're gonna go ahead and just kind of set ties as far as some right now. What we're trying to go ahead and do is just engage with you. Over the past years with Preschool Promise, we have heard a lot from our grantees as far as what could be some services that would be valuable, that it will be nice for us to go ahead and add to our programming. So we're asking all of you in attendance to go ahead and fill out a survey that answers the question, what program enhancements will be most valuable to you as a Preschool Promise grantee? Super important information. We have heard many suggestions over the years, so we have captured those, but we want to go ahead and make sure that our understanding is accurate. So right now, pretty soon here, there's going to be a poll that's going to pop up, and what we're asking you to do is to go ahead and select your top three enhancements or services or additions to the program that you would like to see, that will go ahead and inform the ELD on how we can go ahead and improve our programming and what kind of funding should we really be looking at as we move forward. We know that many of you are dual funded, triple funded. We are asking also a question as far as what funding sources is your program receiving. While at the same time, it's also giving you the opportunity, maybe there's one that we didn't list it there. So go ahead and type it in. I believe that's on the chat box, right? Is that accurate? Okay, so perfect. Alrighty, so we are going to go ahead and here's a survey. Just go ahead and take a couple minutes. So we're going to take 5 minutes on this part of the survey for you to go ahead and take the survey on the screen. So we'll come back once everyone's done. And Angela, if there's anything that I missed, please.
So I am not interrupting. I just want to note that some folks are joining us by phone, and it sounds like it's trickier to access the poll if you are joining by phone. So I'm just going to read out loud. And if you have access to the chat, you can add it there. You're also welcome to just email your response to PSP. So the funding streams that we have here are Preschool Promise, which hopefully, unless you're a listening partner, you've selected that. OPK, Federal Head Start, Relief Nursery, Baby Promise, Title One. I think for our purposes, Equity Fund, donations, ERDC, and private pay. And then the list of potential Preschool Promise program enhancements. Think about enhancements as like anything that you would like to see additional funding for in the future, potentially. Additional funding to support transportation, approaches to family well-being, which could be family support staff, home visitors, family advocates, child abuse prevention and domestic violence support, housing and mental health for parents, benefit packages for staff, health, dental, retirement, etc. Dental, vision, and hearing screenings for all enrolled children. Just a reminder, we're trying to pick our top 3. I know we want all of these. Enhancement for extended program hours. So, for example, adding additional funding enhancements for programs that are offering additional hours per day or days per week or months per year. Inclusion supports like lower ratios, hiring additional staff, providing access to training and coaching, increasing wages for all program staff. We know we have target salaries for teachers and assistant teachers, but this would include all program staff. And then any others that you feel like we missed or that would be a priority from your perspective, you could add to the chat. Or again, if you're and so you do need to answer both questions before you hit submit, I believe. So if it's not letting you submit, I think you need to scroll down. So thanks for that, Sky. And if you're having any other technical difficulties, feel free to just add your 2 cents to the chat, or you can email the PSP inbox. We'll give everybody just 1 more minute. Looks like almost everyone has completed it. Okay, I think we're ready to end. Dana, are you ready to move on?
Awesome. Alrighty, well, let's go ahead and move forward. And one thing to go ahead and know as far as this information, this really just informs kind of like funding plans for the ELD when it comes to like preschool promise. And then a lot of these recommendations will be presenting. Currently, ELD is engaging with a BIPOC community engagement group. So this will also be shared there. But thank you all for participating in this quick survey. As I mentioned, these were things that we capture over the years. So just getting your, the pulse check and making sure that we may have not missed anything is super important to us. So thank you. Alrighty, so we can move to the next slide.
Okay. Just checking that I'm not still muted. So just a quick check-in as far as financial concerns go. If you have been notified that you are eligible to continue into next year, or if you are, if that's still your plan, the grant agreements will extend your performance period through June 30th, 2023. So your funds for 2022 and 2023 will be added to your existing subgrants in EGAMS, and the payment process will be the same. So it'll be a little different than previous years where you kind of like started over and had a new bucket of money. It'll just kind of extend through the following year. Was everybody able to see the poll results? Sorry, I want to check in really quick. Yeah? Okay. I just saw that in the chat. I want to make sure that I thought I shared successfully. I can share those at the end as well. And then if you have decided not to continue, or if ultimately, it's determined that we're not able to continue granting with you in 2022, 2023, this week's bulletin will include a closeout checklist, very similar to last year's closeout checklist if you were with us last year. Important things to remember are that all goods and services need to be paid for and received within the performance period of your grant agreement. So if you're not continuing into 2022, 2023 program year, that would be June 30th, 2022. So end of next month. And then final claims must be submitted no later than August 14th, 2022, utilizing the existing payment process. So another important thing to just keep in your mind is you don't want to hit in the EGAM system like final claim until you are really, really confident that that is your last claim that you'll be making in the system. So just some things to keep in mind. There'll be more detailed information in the bulletin tomorrow. And then the end of the year report, exciting news about the end of year report is it will not be as lengthy as it was last year. That was a big lift for grantees and providers last program year. And so one of our efforts this year was to break that up. So the quarterly reports that you've been completing throughout this year, those are kind of elements that were included in the end of year report last year. So it should be a little more basic this year, still long, but not like prior years. And then a worksheet, a tutorial video, and full instructions will be included. So just keep that on your radar, that is coming up soon. Dana, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Alrighty, so let's talk about insurance. As we had mentioned during our last meeting, we've been having some really nice, collaborative conversations with DAS in regards to our insurance. So there will be some new insurance limits starting July 1st, 2022. Some of the changes that you are going to be seeing is that we made some, just typical like updating on language and like on our templates and some of that, but some of the big highlights is that there is going to be a separate limit that will be required for like our in-home providers. This is something that we've been hearing for like many years, and so there is going to be a separate limit. We had heard that the $1 and $2 million aggregate, was really difficult to find, really hard. So that has now been changed to like $1 million aggregate. So our home base will have their own separate requirement. Professional liability will be required across all programs. From what we have been seeing, most of the programs have that. So I don't know that there's going to be much change there. And then we also did a little bit of cleanup on the automobile insurance. So just great news. So we have been able to go ahead and just provide a little bit of a differentiation, like given our mixed delivery. Once again, like please go ahead and use that, the exhibit on your insurance. Like I said, we've updated the language. So that's really a really nice piece for you to go ahead and provide to your insurance broker, to go ahead and like make sure that they're reading that. Also, please do not use this slide and show it to your insurance broker. You need to go ahead and use the exhibit that's on your grant agreement, but we'll go ahead and make that available. And like I said, this requirements will be in effect on July 1st of 2022. So now we go on to cost per child. So let's take a look at that. So our cost per child is changing for 22-23. So as we had heard, many of you are really needing support with like inclusionary practices and being able to go ahead and like provide support to our kiddos. So the new cost per child for 22-23 program year is going to be $13,650 per child. And then the transportation enhancement has now been changed to $900 per slot, which is a different enhancements. We're really happy to be able to support this and making sure that you have the resources available to go ahead and provide that high quality in the classroom. So previously it was 12,360, now it's the 13,650. Once again, this is for our next program year starting July 1st. And as far as like some of the enhancements is really done with that lens of like supporting our grantees with inclusionary practices. So this is going to be to go ahead and hire additional staff for you in the classroom, mental health consultants. Maybe you need some materials and manipulatives for the kiddos in care to go ahead and staffing and so on. So this is like really, like I said, with the lens, we know that in our grant manual, we have that no expulsion, no suspension. And a lot of our grantees is like, great, but where are some of those supports? So that is, this enhancement is really towards that eye of like inclusionary practices and supporting, especially as we're coming, out of this pandemic, more kiddos are going back. We've been hearing that many of you are really needing support. So, So really, think we're doing really good on time right now. I think we'd rush through this, so we can go ahead and open it up for questions that we may clarify. But before someone asks, I will go ahead and answer this question. Preschool Promise RFA. Preschool Promise RFA, we are still on track to go ahead and launch that in spring of 2022. We're working through those final pieces of our RFA. So we're still on track with June and hope that we can go ahead and share that as soon as possible once everything becomes available. As far as you all with our RFA, if you are wanting to go ahead and get expand your program, you do need to go through the RFA. So as mentioned before, we have our continuation track, and then we have your, the RFA track that if you're wanting to go ahead and do any preschool promise expansion, all preschool promise grantees need to go through the RFA. So Angela, if you want to put the slide down, we can answer some questions.
Sure. Yeah. And just a reminder, if you don't mind, please putting your questions in the chat. That just helps us capture if we can't answer something today so that we can answer it another time. I'll start with Ramesh. And yes, Leora, it is welcome news for us too. We're very happy to offer it. That might be why we rushed. We were kind of hoping to get to that last slide where we could announce that. Let me stop sharing screen. So Ramesh asked, is Preschool Promise planning on offering funding to continue into the summer of this program year?
Yeah, great question. There is no summer programming for Preschool Promise for next program year, like for current grantees. It's no later than August 1st, like the start date, and no later than September the 30th. As far as, what are the timelines for the RFA and the expectations, we're looking into them. We don't have information that we're still working through our procurement and DOJ processes as far as the RFA, but as far as just our current programming, if we were to put that the RFA aside, is no earlier than August 1st and no later than September 30th.
I'm gonna jump a little bit and then I'll get back to your question, Mary, but Tammy asked, will it be the same for adding spots? Do you need to go through the RFA process? So if you're a current program expanding, do you still need to apply through the RFA process?
That's accurate. Yeah, to go ahead and add additional slots to your your current current programming, you will need to go through the RFA. Yes.
Yeah. And then I'm just gonna kind of generalize this a little bit. If your insurance is expiring pretty soon, do you need to renew at the current level, even though the changes will be happening July 1st?
Great question. I think that will be, question for your insurance agent. That, the guidance that we've been given is like current grantees, you meet the current limits, and then starting July 1st is when the new insurance limits take effect.
And then, Barbara, I'm gonna get this is my I'm gonna put a little caveat on this that unexpended funds from 21-22, we do anticipate those carrying over to 2023 program year for programs that are continuing. I'm going to put just a tiny asterisk on this since we don't have a grants team member with us here today, but that is my understanding as it's been explained to me. Okay. Is there a current timeline for amended grants?
Not we're trying to go ahead and get that as soon as possible. We don't have the exact date for release other than is currently under review with DOJ and procurement. I think like for us, it's really like on that notification about like, hey, you met the threshold, right? And it's more like, do you want to continue? But just know that we're working really hard to go ahead and get that out. And then also just given, the needs of our program, then we'll need to go ahead and do some translation there too. That's one of the reasons why there's also like no continuation application. It's more okay, let's get the grant amendment, grant, documents approved. So then they're just sent out for signature. So a little plug there, if there's any contact information that may have changed, like maybe we please go ahead and make sure that you email that to us, because when those grant documents are ready for signature, they're going to be sent to the program contact that we have on file. So if anything has changed, please email us.
Forgive me, I see some questions here that I know we need to come back to, so I'm going to just pause on those. I want to clarify the initial question that I asked about adding slots. It sounds like that question was actually for 2023, 2024. Do we have any information about if programs are interested in expanding beyond next program year? Do we know anything about what might be available or what that process would look like?
That's a great question. Like we're going to be doing our expansion with this next RFA, and that will be for the 22-23 program year. So as far as like 23-24 and so on, that I don't have any information on that. I think as we continue with our programming and Preschool Promise, I mentioned like in previous meetings that this next year is looking like it's going to be the 1-year grant, but really our goal as Preschool Promise is just come up with a stabilize a little bit, right, and go into a multi-year grant. So then when we're talking about like 23, 24, 25, that we can go ahead and do a 2-year grant to go ahead and really just kind of reduce a lot of the stress, a lot of the unknowns as we're coming to the end of the year. So that is a goal that we have like for when we're talking about those future program years, is that we can go into multi-year, which then comes the question as far as like, well, what happens if we lose, there's a program that needs to go ahead and continue, like what does that reallocation process looks like? So it wouldn't be so that's still to go ahead and comment, to go ahead and work on. We have received some emails from grantees that are like, I'm going through some personal stuff, can I go ahead and take a break from 22-23? And that unfortunately there's not a way for us to go ahead and put our grant on hold, quote unquote, because technically speaking, the grant ends on June 30th. So there's not a way for us to do that. So that it will be, because there's not a way for us to go ahead and hold those slots and save them for when our grantee is ready to go ahead and come back. unfortunately, but we understand that things happen, right? So please go ahead and give us a call and just let us know if you need to go ahead and do a little bit of brainstorming of like what are some of the um, what do you need to go ahead and do. I think about like some of our like home-based grantees. Sometimes they're like, well, I can't run the business right now, so I need to go ahead and like stop preschool promise. There is no requirement for the business owner to be the lead teacher. Does that make sense? So it's like sometimes we've been having some conversations with our grantees. Well, let's really go ahead and take a look at what are the requirements of preschool promise, and does that help like mitigate some of those decisions? But unfortunately, we're not able to hold the grant or the slots.
That's great clarification. Dana, understandably, I'm seeing a lot of questions about the RFA in the chat. And I know we are a little bit tied by procurement rules on what we can share. Is there any additional information around the RFA that we are able to share at this time? Or do you want me to? I'm happy to read off the questions. I'm worried that we might be pretty limited in what we're able to say.
I can go ahead and just answer general questions about the RFA. So as far as the RFA, we're still on track as far as like June 2022, and know that we are working really, really hard to go ahead and get it out as soon as possible, because we know that the families are waiting, they're needing the services, right? So that's one, know that we're working really hard on it. There is going to be, once it comes out, it is going to be available in English and Spanish, and people are going to be able to apply in the language they prefer. So that will be the same process. As far as like how long is the RFA going to be open? Right now, once again, because kiddos, we have the expectation of like serving kiddos, it's looking like 30 days, right? So should anything change, we will go ahead and keep you all updated. As far as like, for the RFA, like how do I stay connected, or how do I know when it comes out? Highly recommend all of you, while you are a preschool promise grantee, we're also like being super careful as far as like we cannot advance any one type of entity or grantee in our RFA processes. So I will go ahead and recommend all of you to go ahead and subscribe to our childcare updates newsletter, because when it comes out and all the information is able to make public, we will be using that kind of like system to be able to inform everybody across the state. So that's one tip on that. But as far as like super, you guys are now aware of the insurance limits, cost per child, some of those pieces, we're not going to have a different cost per child than for current grantees and new ones. Clarification, the RFA is not just it's also to go ahead and add some more grantees to our portfolio, right? We want to go ahead and have like some new grantees. There's been conversations and questions about like, was there going to be any flexibility for some of those new grantees to get ready, right, before they start with preschool promise? So that is something that we're looking into. Is like, is there any way, well, we have the requirement of like starting services by a certain day. It's like, what could be some of like the supports and systems that we can provide to go ahead and help grantees get ready. So those, I think those will be some pretty general like, answers on the RFA.
Thanks, Dana. Thank you, Denise. I was just trying to screenshot and put in the chat, but it's not letting me in Zoom. But I'm going to plug the Oregon Early Learning website link in the chat. My mouse will catch up with me here. And it is on the main page. If you you should see it front and center. It says subscribe for news and updates. And if you hit the subscribe button, you'll see an option for childcare provider updates. That's the name of the newsletter, and that's where we've determined is going to be the first place that we share RFA related information. I want to clarify, that's not to say that we won't have follow-up information provided to current grantees. It's just that when we initially announce, we are doing our best to get it to all eligible applicants all at once, doing our best to be as fair as possible there. Um, so that is regarding the update newsletter. Um, Other questions in the chat. Dana, I wonder if you can. I think this one maybe is general enough for you to answer. Will the RFA be long and painful? um, and do we know the due date? Uh, and when will the due date be following the release? I don't know if we can respond to that one, but can you talk about the length of the RFA? Is that something you can speak to at all?
So, I mean, one thing that I can share about the RFA is that we are really trying to learn from our previous like experience. We know there was some opportunities, in the way that the question was presented, in the way that like what is really ELD looking for. So we're trying to be very descriptive. So we're trying to go ahead and make it as simple as we can, knowing that we also have like some procedural stuff that we need to go ahead and like take into consideration. We are able, all of our early learning hubs, I submitted like great information to us as far as like, as we go into like our expansion, like what should preschool promise look like in each community? Like what are we hearing from parents as far as like the location, the provider type, the language of instruction. So you will be able to see some of those pieces in other pieces there as we continue to go ahead and work on that. So I can't promise that it's going to be like super simple, but know that we're working really hard and are being very intentional with the questions that we're asking and as we continue working through this process.
Thanks, Dana. I think, thank you everybody for your questions in the chat. I think that is really helpful for us, even though there's a lot that we aren't able to respond to quite yet. It is really helpful just to kind of gather those questions and help us make sure that we have those right out in front answered for everyone when we do launch the RFA. So really appreciate that and really want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining us. As always, if you have any other follow-up questions, you can email the PSP inbox. PSP, I know there's some confusion because we did do like a tech overhaul in the past few months, but either the old email address or the new one, so psp@state.or.us will get to us, or psp@ode.oregon.gov. Either of those will work. You'll get to the same inbox. So appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining, and look forward to hearing from all of you soon. Have a great evening.
Thank you.